before? What about strange creatures that are mythical and elusive? Have you experienced deja vu or felt a prompting to leave because you felt you were in danger? If you have, you were on the fringe.
Good evening. Welcome to another episode of On the Fringe. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jess.
And we're here to talk time travel. Before we get started, we have a little bit of housekeeping, and then we'll get right into it.
Hey, this is Mark with What If Tomorrow and What If Tomorrow on the Fringe. Be sure to check out our website, whatiftomorrowmedia.com. And look at our cool merch. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, posters, and more. Our affiliates are Duke Cannon, EMP Shield, My Patriot Supply, and Conflicted the Game. Or check out buymeacoffee.com/whatiftomorrow and buy us a coffee. And as always, be sure to like, comment, and share on both Facebook and YouTube. It helps get our content out to others and help our channel grow. Now on with the show.
Time travel.
Time travel. I was going to say really quick, we lost Pam in a horrible time traveling accident. We don't know where or when we left her.
Well, I'm pretty sure we know where she's at. Just not when she's getting back.
Oh, and we're going to wish Phil a very happy birthday today.
Yes. Happy birthday, Phil. He spent his day doing jury duty.
Oh, yuck. On his birthday?
I know,
Happy
right?
Happy birthday from Uncle Sam. Dang.
Yeah. Well, I always get called for jury duty and then they never keep me. I don't know. Maybe it's just the stuff that comes out of my mouth that just makes them go, no.
I always know all the police officers involved, so yay. It always gets me.
Oh, that always helps. Yeah.
Yeah, I know too many police officers. So, yeah, it's always fun to do that. They're like, "Do you know any of these people?" And I'm like, "I know him and him and him and him. Oh, and I know her." And I'm completely I will completely say anything they want me to say. So, excuse me on out of here.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, we've talked time travel before. It's a fun subject. We've got some updates on some ones we've talked about in the past and some completely new ones. So where do you want to get started?
I have no idea.
You want to start out with the one everybody wants to know about?
Which one?
Madman, Mike Marcum.
Mike Marcum. We totally can. So actually, that's what kind of inspired us to start this. And then we found so many conflicting stories and things about him that we decided not to make it the whole show about him. So, right. Yeah, we can totally touch on.
So I think most people have heard of Mike who are interested in paranormal, or if you've been listening to Coast to Coast for a long time, you've probably heard Art Bell talk about him. Mike is a fun guy. He really is.
I'll go over the basics of the story. So if there's anyone going to be listening or watching who maybe does not know who Mike Marcum is, we can get a little flavor. So Mike Marcum is a dude out of Missouri. And back in the mid to late 90s, he started playing around trying to build a Jacob's ladder in his garage. And supposedly, completely by accident, built some type of a transporter machine, which he started sucking hardware through, like screws and his TV remote, if I remember correctly. he actually used a modified CD laser, an old CD reader, with 2 poles, and created basically like a little Tesla coil thing or whatever. But supposedly started sending stuff through it and got so excited about it, he thought he could make it bigger. So he ended up stealing 6 gigantic transformers from his
On a substation,
local power place. Yeah. Which he hooked up to this machine and proceeded to blow out his entire town. Right? His little
Yep.
he had like a
Knocked
tiny
out all
town
the
of like
power.
knocked out all their power. The police figured it out and arrested him, and he did some jail time. Got out of jail. And this all caught the attention of Art Bell from Coast to Coast, and he had Mike on to discuss his inventions. And he was sad because it was going to cost too much money to rebuild everything and to get everything going. And Art Bell's listeners stepped up and were like, hey, here's some money and here's some parts and stuff that you might need. And he started to build bigger and bigger. Now here's where the true mystery comes in. So supposedly he disappeared around 1996, 1997, and no one heard from him again. And one of Art Bell's listeners came in
Hey, Phil.
a few years later and said, hey, I found this old write-up in an old newspaper that said back in the 30s that this guy was found on the beach in pieces, shoved down into a metal tube, and he had a strange square device with him that had a glass screen. And they were sure that it was Mike Marcum, and he had traveled back in time and basically self-destructed in his Tesla tube. Right? So we were going to do the story on because there was supposed sightings of him over the years, and maybe he hadn't traveled in the past. Maybe he'd traveled forward. Anyway, Mark and I started doing some research, and we found all sorts of insanity.
I mean, there's all sorts of conflicting stories. Everybody seems to agree that was not him on the beach.
Yeah.
Unless he hasn't traveled there yet. Because
which I thought,
apparently he's still kicking.
Yeah, actually, he did an interview just a couple years ago saying that absolutely wasn't him on the beach. Yet. He didn't say the yet part.
Yeah, I'm going to add the yet, yes.
Yes.
Because if he's still doing that, I mean, he doesn't know if that could be him.
Yeah. So what we do know for certain, because I went and looked up public records and stuff, I can't find him for a while in the late 90s. And then later on, he pops back up in Kansas. He did move to Kansas at some point, was rearrested for parole violations because he was on parole still from having stolen all the crap from the Transformers. And he skipped parole. Now, whether this means he really did just pack up and move to Kansas and messed up his parole, or if he did try to use this thing again and got shot somewhere. He did say in that interview that he actually did try to use it again, and he got sent 2 years ahead and 100 miles away in Kansas.
800 miles.
Oh, 800 miles, excuse me.
Yeah, because he went and then he came back.
Yeah. I don't know.
So
I kind of want it to be true.
I do too. And the thing is that makes this story so compelling is scientists actually came out and said, time travel doesn't exist, but if it did, it would work kind of like how this guy is saying. If you were going to do it, you would use the process that if you're going to try it, that's what we would do. Mm-hmm. And I find it very interesting that his description of his device and how it worked seems very similar to the description of the device that Andrew Basaggio talked about in his stories. So he may be working for the government from now. I don't know. He could have got co-opted if there's a secret government time travel program.
I don't know. So like in my research, so this isn't the only time where we have some Yahoo somewhere supposedly coming up with a way to have a machine that works. Um, like Mark said, Andrew Bizago has one. He actually, if you go and reread his stuff, he actually tells you how to build one with
Yeah.
if I believe it's correct, it is it 8-sided bismuth crystal, I
I don't
believe.
remember. It's
Right? Between two posts. It's always between the two posts, some kind of a crystal, um, with some kind of an array going on. And it's not the only time. So Andrew has one, and I brought a book in with me today. If you guys want a nutty read, this book right here, which is Stranger Than Fiction, The True Time Travel Adventures of Stephen L. Gibbs. So he's a self-proclaimed time traveler, still living. He lives in Nevada, I believe. But he's actually famous for doing this. He goes on news programs and stuff and tells people how to build their own time machines and tells them about his stories of time traveling. And this book, if you're interested in trying it yourself, is full of all of his designs, right? Let me pull some of these out. This is some crazy stuff. There's a time machine that's got a crystal in the middle of it. And it's just full of designs for all these different types of time travel machines that will do different things for you. They'll send you in the future, send you the past, or send you sideways, or whatever. So yeah, this particular book is by Patricia Griffin Ress. So I'll try to leave a link for it in the comments for you guys to look up. So if you want to build your own and hopefully not end up dead in a tube on a beach in the 1930s.
well, time travel is happening right now. Did you know that?
It is happening right now.
By orbiting the Earth, astronauts will be gaining a couple 100,000ths of a second over those of us on the Earth.
Yep.
Over time. So, I mean, it's happening right now. The
It is
farther away
happening
you
right
get
now.
from the gravity well, the faster time goes.
That's very true.
So,
You're getting
all
all
you have to do,
technical.
all you have to do is take a flight in a really tall airplane. Or a really,
I will
really
say that. So the scientific side of things, like, I'm not going to go deep into that this time. We did that the last time.
We did.
If you all are really interested in about hearing us talk about just the cogs of it, go back and I believe it. Were we on the Fringe yet, or were we still What If Tomorrow?
I believe it was on the Fringe by then. I can tell you real quick when that was.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So while he's looking at that, go back out and check out this previous episode that we did. We kind of get really
June
deep into
6th,
that stuff.
2023.
Yeah.
So it's not that far back.
It's not that far back, but you're going to hear about, so we'll talk about universal theory and Einsteinian theory and all the different kinds of paradoxes, like the grandfather paradox. A person can't go back in time and kill their grandfather because then the grandfather would never have lived to have had the son that would have been the father. Casual loops, even like we may touch a little bit on like bootstrap paradox, because I know we're probably going to talk a little bit about the photos that they're finding of people that supposedly have cell phones and pictures that are far too old. So people start talking about bootstrap paradoxes, where maybe somebody went back in time with a cell phone. So a bootstrap paradox is where an item is brought back in time and actually becomes the basis for its own creation. So if there was already one there, somebody would have taken it apart and been like, oh, this is how I build this.
Right.
Stuff like that. And then, like, I think we even like go into like multiverse theory, because that leads into it. Like some people think that you can't actually go back in your own timeline, that if you tried to go back, you would just end up creating a secondary line that you would fall back into, or vice versa. If you went into the future, you would create a new line. So you would never be able to go back in your own line ever. Yeah.
Well, then there's the theory that the universe will try to straighten everything out for you.
Yes.
So you go back and kill your grandfather, but he really wasn't your grandfather because your dad was adopted.
Yeah.
So
insanity. All sorts of fun.
You'll give yourself an aneurysm.
You will. Like, every time I go back to my old notes on that kind of stuff, I always have to like kind of reread up on what it was I was working on at that time to understand what I was trying to tell myself. Does that make sense?
Sadly, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, like, well, I mean, like, I brought some of my books in with me just because I like kind of like retouched up on some of it today, just to make sure I knew exactly what it was I was talking about, because I don't want to give people the wrong information. But like this kind of stuff, yeah, if you're gonna like study up on this kind of stuff, go through him. He is one of the smartest people that I've ever seen, but he knows how to explain it to people in a way you can understand. I've had some other books where I was
Physics
like,
for Dummies.
Yeah, it's physics for dummies for dummies. That's what it is. So yeah.
Well, if you listen to me talk about physics, you're listening to physics by dummies. Or from dummies. I don't know. It's English. I don't know.
So while we're talking about, before we start into some stories, because a lot of the stories Mark and I are telling you about tonight are, we're going to hit some of the most famous ones, and then we're going to do some less famous ones that are kind of like everyday people kind of stuff. We're going to kind of slide a little bit towards time slip kind of situation where there wasn't like an actual machine involved, like there wasn't an actual like chronovisor or something. But I thought before we hit that, we should touch on some of the famous time travel machines that have been around, right? So I went ahead and pulled up my old Andrew Bazzago information we had from when we did Project Pegasus, because if we've ever done a time travel show, it was Project Pegasus, because it's deep in the weeds. Another show you guys absolutely need to go back and see if you have not yet. That's some crazy stuff.
It's crazy, but I want to believe it. The guy seems really credible.
He really does. He has done extensive interviews on news programs and podcasts and stuff. He's not hard to find, and he is still alive. He's still very much doing interviews. So please go and hunt him up on some podcasts and take a listen. He is a fascinating person, whether his story is true or not. It's a fascinating story. So his story is based on, he claims that he was used since he was very young by the government in different time travel programs. And this isn't just a him thing. This has been talked about a lot with a lot of people, that the government has had knowledge of time travel possibilities for a very long time. And in fact, a lot of them think that he stole most of that from Tesla, or the government stole most of it from Tesla. We know a lot of Tesla's papers went missing after he passed. And Andrew has a story and a full follow through of what happened to all of this paperwork and what they did with it. Clear up until I think the late 90s is when he finally made his full exit from the programs. And he started out with the Tesla array, which is the 2 poles that you would walk through, and follows through with. Let me see here. Let me pull up all my listings. So he said that the government at the time had 8 modalities of time travel. So they had a remote viewing, which we all do know that was true. They've released all that information. They did have
we
remote
know about
viewers.
that.
Yes.
That's been confirmed.
Yes. They had an astral spinning device, is what he said. He said they also had a Montauk chair. We all know the craziness of Montauk. The chronovisor, which we talk about in length in a lot of the shows that we've done. The Tesla teleporter. The Stargate, which everybody's heard about. The plasma confinement chamber. The aeronautical repositioning chamber. And that all goes into like the Galileo program and DARPA and oh my goodness, we're not going to get into all of that tonight. We've done that. Go back and check out that show. It's completely fascinating and completely head spinning. Yeah. The chronovisor itself, we do know that several chronovisors exist or existed. All built by the same 3 guys. They've made 4, I believe. And supposedly our government owns one. Supposedly there's one at the Vatican, I believe.
Yeah, the Vatican supposedly has one.
There is one supposedly floating around, perhaps in Germany. That one was floating around. That one was like, I believe, one of the first ones that was made when they were doing the Die Glock, when they were doing the Nazi bell. I think we just lost Mark.
Nope, I'm still here.
You're still there? All right.
Yep.
So can you think of any other famous time travel devices, Mark?
Not right. I think you covered all the ones I know about.
Yeah. Except for, of course, we'll probably hit a little bit on the thing they powered up for the supposed ship disappearing for the Philadelphia experiment.
Philadelphia experiment. And that one worked very similar to Mr. Marcum's.
Yes.
With a rotating magnetic field.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, the famous Montauk chambers and such. And heck, Montauk was a multitude of different devices that they supposedly used throughout the entire area there. Which one of these days I want to do a Montauk.
Yes, we should do
just
that.
one on Montauk. So
Camp
kind of a fan
Hero
of that.
or Montauk Air Force Station in Montauk.
Yes. Absolutely. I'm a big fan. It's one of the ones that I've been kind of studying on. So let me see, like,
oh no.
Yeah, I told Mark, I was just like, I just grabbed up a good handful of my books on this. Mark knows I'm a huge fan of like multi-dimensional time travel, that kind of stuff. That's what I nerd out on. So I have a lot on that stuff. So we touched on Mike Marcum. What else do we want? Let's touch on some other big ones.
Serge Ponomarenko.
Okay.
That was an interesting one because he had documents. In the Ukraine, this gentleman shows up in the middle of the street looking totally lost. And so the cops come up and ask for his ID, and he says, sure, hands him an ID from the USSR, dated from the 1950s. This kid he's 25 years old. His ID at the time it was printed, says he was 25 years old back in the 50s. So they pull him in, they interview him, they put him in a mental hospital. The doctor is interviewing him, and the guy says, well, if you don't believe me, just look on my camera. Well, so the doctor finds out, gets the camera, and it's an antique. You can't even buy film for it anymore. They don't make it.
Wow.
Find somebody who can develop it, and all the pictures on there are of buildings that don't exist anymore. Got pictures of the guy and his girlfriend. Everything in it's from the 1950s. Everything is perfect. The film was manufactured, I think I want to say 52 or 53. And it's perfect. And as you know, that old film, it's made out of bovine bones. It does not hold up to time really well. The fellow who developed it said it was in perfect condition, like it was brand new roll. So there's photographic evidence. And then so Serge says, well, now that you see that, don't you believe me? And the doctor's really starting to believe him. They've got video of this guy walking back to his room, which there's only one way in. It's on camera. The windows are barred. You can't get out. They go in the next day to get it. He's not there. He's gone. He never walked out.
Ba-ba-bum.
They track down his girlfriend. And she says, she's still alive. She's elderly. She says, oh, yeah. He disappeared back in 19 whatever it was. But he came back a few days later and said he'd been to the future. Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
And she comes up with, then he disappeared again after a few years. And she got a postcard with him. I believe it was in Kiev, but with skyscrapers in the background. And he's about 40, 45 years old. With a note says he'll be back soon, and he never returned. But he had saw a UFO while he was out walking, taking pictures, and snapped a picture of it. And when he snapped that picture was when he found himself in the street.
Oh.
So it's a really and the pictures off this guy's camera, I'll see if I can find them on here, but yeah, I mean they're real pictures. They absolutely look right, and the ID looks correct.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of strange.
Yeah, that
It's
reminds
very
me
well
of
documented.
the Rudolph fence. Did you find the Rudolph fence stuff? The Times Square time traveler.
Oh, the guy got run over?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. That one's one of my favorite ones. So this was supposedly happened back in June 1950. There was a man that just popped into being right in the middle of Times Square, right in the main drag, and was automatically hit by a taxi and killed. Even the taxi driver said he literally was not there and then he was right there. That I don't know if I trust because, you know, a New York taxi driver, I think they hit everything, don't they? Yeah.
They make the world's best demo derby drivers.
I think they do. Yeah.
I think they do.
And flip you off while they're doing it too.
What's the matter?
That's right. So, okay, so this dude pops into being, automatically gets hit by a taxi. But the strange thing about it was, and the great thing to the story, whether it's true or not, was that there was actually a police officer that witnessed this happening. He was right there when he got hit. He was the first one on the scene, and he filed a report on it. And you can find the report. So the strange thing about this case was, besides this dude just popping up, is that he was dressed in an 1800s style suit, a gentleman's suit. And in his pocket, he had one copper token that said it was for a beer, some kind of a beverage beer. He had a bill for the care of a horse and the washing of a carriage, which doesn't make sense in 1950s New York.
Okay.
He had a bill for the, excuse me, he had a $70 in old cash, a letter with a name on it. It was marked 1876, and business cards. And that's how they got his name, Rudolph Fentz. It had his name on the letter. And the crazier thing was that the police officer said that none of the items that were in his pockets looked old, like from the 1870s. They didn't have any yellowing or, age to them. So this New York policeman decided to research the case to try to figure out who this dude was, because he was never claimed. And he, after many, many years in his research, finally found a man that matched this description, that had disappeared back in 1876, apparently. He was looking into old missing person cases from the New York area and found this. So that's basically the story. Nobody bought the cop's story that this is who it was, because, that would be ridiculous.
Wouldn't it?
A lot of people think that it's fake. I remember this. They said that it was very similar to a short story called I'm Scared by Jack Finney. However, if you look back at the original copyright date on it, it was first printed in September 1951, which was an entire year after this incident happened. So it obviously couldn't have been influenced by
It
the
may have gone the
story.
other way.
Exactly. That's what I think, that it was the other way around, that this dude wrote this short story after hearing what had happened with this guy. So that's one of the ones that's always been one of my favorites. Could you imagine that, though, if that was true? That poor guy was probably just walking along the street in his own time and accidentally hit a time slip, popped right in front of full-on
Hit a fisher
traffic,
in
and
time and space, and what's that?
just bam.
Oh,
Yeah.
truck coon
Sup.
got him.
Although I don't think I would have wanted to been alive in New York in 1950 at Times Square. Do you remember how bad that was?
Yeah,
Not
and
good.
the pollution was even worse.
Yeah. Like, I don't know if a lot of people realize, but the Times Square area back at that time and up through into part of the 80s, Times Square was the slummy side of New York. It was the slum district. Like,
Yeah.
that's where you went and got your loose women and your drinks and whatever else, tickled your fancy at the time. So,
Chlamydia.
ew. That's probably why there were so many cops down there that witnessed the
Probably
accident.
so, because they were down there trying to keep everybody out of trouble.
Yep. Ooh.
Yeah, not good. Let's see. Let's see. There was Ronald Mallet. Did you see that one?
I did, but go for it. We'll just sit
Well-
here and take turns back and forth.
Ronald Mallet, otherwise known as Ron, is a theoretical physicist, scientist, and author, and has been a faculty member of the University of Connecticut. He was trying to build a time machine to go back in time and save his father's life. So he was working on plans for the time machine. The technology would be based on a ring laser's properties in the context of Einstein's general theory of relativity. He argued that the ring laser would produce a limited amount of frame dragging, which might be measured experimentally. because of Mount making a time machine, a lot of people believed in time travel. In a later paper, Mount argued that sufficient energies, the circulating laser, might produce not just frame dragging, but also closed time-like curves. There's that closed time-like curves,
Hmm.
allowing time travel into the past. He went to 1955 to save his father's life. His father later passed away from old age in 2010. So this guy's real. He's an actual scientist, and he says he did it.
Wow.
I mean, it's a huge article. I found several huge articles about it, but that's the abridged version.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, there's no way we could sit here and tell all the little details of all these stories.
oh no, that's a good one. I mean, like I said, this is a real
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
So,
So yeah, like John Teeter. Did you pull up the John Teeter stuff?
do I have Teeter? I don't think he's in my list. Oh, John
Or,
Titor.
yeah. Teeter,
Yeah, I've
Titer,
got him.
Tater Tot, whatever. Yeah, so this one here is one of my favorites. And this one isn't old. Well, I mean, it's a little
It's a little
old, I
dated.
guess. It's a little dated. So he started posting on the internet like back in 2000 that he was a soldier sent from 2036. That was a supposed year that a computer virus wiped out the world. And he had a mission to go back to 1975 and steal an original IBM 5100, which had the right equipment to stop the virus. So apparently, out of all the computers that have ever been made, from the beginning of computers all the way to 2036, the 5100 was the only one that was capable of stopping this virus.
You know, there's some plausibility to that because at a certain point you would get too obsolete to actually support the virus.
Yeah,
So that might allow you to, I don't know, maybe.
I don't know either. Um, but yeah, the reason why he was in 2000, if he was supposed to be going back into the 70s, he said he supposedly stopped in 2000 to take a vacation, right? So he stayed
I
on
think
the
a better
internet and
time.
yeah, he
I think
answered
I would have gone to
questions.
Woodstock.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he floated around on the internet for 4 months answering people's cockamamie questions about the future and everything. Um, so what he did was he kind of grandstanded, and it was like he was urging people to learn first aid. He also was saying things like you have to stop eating beef because mad cow disease was very, very bad in the future. It was very rampant. And he also said, oh, he signed off. Okay. He signed off on March 24th, 2001, and said, this was his ending thing. He said, bring a gas can with you when your car dies on the side of the road. And then he vanished onto the internet and was supposedly never heard of from again.
Didn't they make that into an anime? His story into an anime?
They might have, I don't know, but it's one of my favorite ones because you can still go up and like
Yeah,
see
I
his
think it
list
was
of
Steins Gate.
predictions.
Was it Steins Gate?
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I
don't
think that was
know.
it. I think it is. I think it
But
is.
he has like 200, it's some crazy number amount of predictions that he made about the future. And all of them have been false so far. So
And he changed the timeline. Dang it, he was successful.
yeah, he shouldn't have taken that vacation in 2000.
There
Why
you go.
2000? I don't know.
I can think of a lot better times to take a vacation. Not gonna lie.
Yeah. Ooh.
All right.
So what else do you got?
You talked about fence. Let's see. How about Adam Archon?
Hit it.
All right. It's not very. This guy claims to be. He's got a YouTube channel. Um, or he's on Apex TV. He shows a video of a person named Adam Archon who claims to be a time traveler from 2045. Uh, he also passed a lie detector test. So
Ooh.
there's not a whole lot on this guy, but do go check out Apex TV and check it out.
Some of these are great. Um, so did you find Andrew Carlson in your research?
I did find Andrew Carlson.
Andrew Carlson, man. Have you figured out if he ended up anywhere or not? Because I couldn't find him anywhere. So this may be a true story. I don't know.
I don't know.
Okay.
I do know that he did some very sketchy stock market stuff.
He did. So I'll tell the story really quick because people need to know about this because this is the kind of thing I would go back and do. I would be about going back for the money. If I could do it.
Absolutely. If you're going to go back for
Yeah.
anything, that'd be
Go
it.
back for the money. So back in 2003, this dude was arrested for high risk stock trading. He put in $800 and turned it into 350 million, right?
Right.
He was arrested and he submitted for a 4-hour confession where he claimed to be from 200 years in the future. Wow. He claimed he had the cure for AIDS. And if they let him go back to his craft, because he came in on a time travel craft, he would tell them all what it was. It was like his bribe. Like, I'll tell you the cure for cancer if you let me leave.
Oh, and where Osama bin Laden was.
Oh, yes. He had a whole list of
A
stuff.
whole bunch of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So, a mystery man ended up showing up and posted bail for him, and dude never showed up for his hearing, and supposedly disappeared. They never found him again. There's still an active warrant out for his arrest, apparently, for these high crime charges. Now, if he was from 200 years in the future, what would $350 million from our timeline do for him? Like,
Probably not a whole lot, but if he invested, here's the deal: you take $350 million. This is the magic of big numbers. Invest it in a very safe interest rate, say 2.5%. Put it in the name of a corporation or whatnot, and pay some legal firm that you know is going to be around to take care of it. And then he shows back up with the paperwork, says this is the password. I want my money. And so
I see.
$350 million with 200 years of compounded interest. I mean,
I gotcha.
It might be worthwhile.
If I do this, if I do the go back in time to make money, I'm gonna take Mark with me because he knows his stuff.
Or conversely, you could convert the $350 million to gold.
Ah, yes. Yes, you could
Gold
do that.
retains its value. A $20 gold piece has the same purchasing power now as it did 100 years ago. The monetary value of that 1 ounce piece of gold is different, but the buying power has remained the same. So there you go.
Mm-hmm.
I can make that work.
I'm with you though. If you're gonna have that kind of money, I'm in it.
Right. Let's hit it. Rob
All right. Who else do we got? While we're still got Andrew Bazzaglio fresh on the brain, let's talk about Michael McIntosh. So Michael McIntosh is supposedly another member of that whole government program thing with the kids.
Well, that's one I don't have.
Yeah, so Michael McIntosh kind of has the same story as Andrew does, only from a different side of it. So he supposedly was brought in early, and he claims that he actually worked with President Obama when Obama was young, that Obama was part of this
I
program.
remember that story. Yeah.
Yeah, and had access to the time traveling, and he also said that he used the chronovision, much like Andrew did. Here's where there has to be some kind of a little bit of a truth to these stories, because these two gentlemen came out separately with like stories. So how they could have known what the other one was going to say,
Right.
I think it lends a little bit of credence to their story.
I
Um,
absolutely would not put this sort of thing past any government on this planet. Of course, if they're going to be able to find some sort of advantage, they're going to go for it.
mhm.
Chris says Marconomics.
Now, I'm bringing up Michael McIntosh. I wanted to really bring him up tonight, because part of his storyline is that he knew that Obama would become president in the future because Obama had witnessed it. If you go back and watch our program on Project Pegasus, what they would do is they would send these kids to the future to see the outcomes of things and bring that information back to the government so that the government could work towards making sure that did happen, or that they had exit strategies if it was something that needed to be worked around, right? I believe in it, Andrew said that the future couldn't be changed, but they could figure workarounds to work around the issues that would pop up. But Michael McIntosh said that he knew that Obama would be a future president. But the interesting thing is that he said that Obama would be president twice, once earlier, but the main one was that he would become president again, he said, in 2025.
That's frightening because,
I know.
I mean, look at the recent news.
That's why I wanted to bring it up tonight.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
interesting. I don't know.
That is
I hope not.
absolutely frightening.
Yes.
It's the end of the world as we know
Yes.
it.
Especially since, what went down over the weekend and all the crazy that's happening today. Let's hope that Mike McIntosh
I have
is
not caught up
wrong.
with the news the last 2 days, so maybe I don't want to. I've caught
Well,
up with some of it.
yeah, Biden has resigned
Yeah.
from rerunning. So
I saw that. I saw that.
yeah. Yeah.
It's going to be so hard to reprint all those pre-filled out ballots.
Yeah.
Sorry. It's just a little political humor. It won't hurt anybody. Well, except
Anywho,
they may be knocking
Michael
on my
McIntosh.
door later.
Uh-oh. I don't know you. I don't know Mark. Michael McIntosh, so beyond all of that stuff with Obama, he also claims that he remote viewed Mars in the 1980s, and says there was once an advanced civilization there, and the government was looking into how that worked. So I don't know.
No, I mean, it's possible. I mean,
Yep.
it's real estate. I believe that there were advanced civilizations we know nothing about here on Earth.
Yeah.
99% of human history is not recorded.
That's very true.
All right. So we got any more good ones? I've got several.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So you're up. What do you want to do next?
Well, let's see. Oh, this is a favorite of mine. Just because this person is, I mean, you can't stop watching. This is like the real life Barbie, Valeria Lukanova, claims to be a time traveler who came to Earth to save the world from superficiality and negative energy. She told Vice in the documentary Space Barbie, "The aim of my life is to come to this planet to help people to realize that it is necessary to move from the role of the human consumer to the role of human demigod." She goes on to say that physical perfection truly is the best medium through which to deliver life-changing philosophy to the human race. That statement has to be some kind of war crime, right? Like, according to the authors on History Wiki. So, yes,
Excitement.
it's I have no words.
Yes, no words.
I have no words.
Some of these stories we find, I'm pretty sure are just, it's 99% a chance that they're just nutters. So just a little woo.
Well, that's why I threw that one out.
Yeah.
Because it's entertaining. And that's
Oh
what
my
we're
God.
trying. We want to entertain you as well as.
Oh, this one's going to be entertaining. There's so
Oh,
many
good.
crazy stories. Do we want to talk about the band from Torrid?
Well, you know what? It's not really a time travel one, but it's kind of related.
It's kind of related. It is kind of a time travel story though, because he pops up later.
Oh, does he? I have not heard that
He
part.
does. Yeah. So, but there's also a lot of like about the story, because there's a lot of people that have come out saying that it's a fake, with some good information that it could be a fake, but it also doesn't denounce everything that he had. So, the Torrid mystery, if you've never heard of it, this dude back in the 50s popped up in a Tokyo airport. He was Caucasian, had a beard, I believe. And when he turned in his passport so he could get on the plane, they checked it and it was from the country of Taured, Taured, which everybody knows is a country that does not exist. And they accused him of having a fake passport and they hauled him into security. And he was trying to tell them, absolutely, this place exists. I just came from there. He said it was between France and Spain somewhere, a small, like, European nation. They arrested him for trying to fake them out and put him in a high security room in a hotel, like, next door to the airport. And was keeping him there. And the officers came in the next day to re-question him and to try to figure out who this dude was. And he was just gone out of a room that didn't have windows, that had guards at the door.
That does sound very similar to Sergei Ponomarenko. I'm sorry.
Mhm.
I have trouble pronouncing those Slavic names. I have trouble pronouncing English. So,
Yeah, well, that's okay.
you know.
Yeah. So the interesting thing, so like the interesting thing about this is like they also had his ID and stuff, and his ID also stated that he was from this place called Torrid. And the dude was exceptionally intelligent, they stated. He actually spoke several languages, including Japanese.
Which is one of the
Um,
most difficult languages to learn.
exactly. And at no time did he get rude or mad about the situation. He was just very straightforward. No, this is where I'm from. This is where it was. He was pointing to it on a map, and he couldn't understand why their maps didn't have his country in it. And he also noted that there were other places missing from the map that they were showing him. He was sure that whatever map they were giving him was a bad map because it wasn't correct. But anyway, he never made an attempt to escape or anything. He just was there one minute and then was gone the next. And
Now, if I
a lot of people,
recall correctly, the city he said he was from was there, though.
I don't know about that. I don't know that deep into it there, but I do know that he supposedly popped up again at the same airport like 5 years later. It wasn't reported on well though because they thought that it was a mimic, that somebody had
Ah,
come in to mimic the situation. But he basically came in with the same story, had the same passport again, and said something to the effect of "not again."
oh, geez.
Yes, and this gentleman disappeared before they ever like took him out of the airport. They had him in some kind of a holding room there, and he just kind of vanished from there too. So I think this guy is like skipping through time or something, maybe
Or skipping through universes or something.
universes. I don't know, but one of the reasons why I brought up the Torrid, so I think it has a little bit of a time element to it because he keeps popping in and out, but also because they always include the Torrid mystery when they have like the listings online of time travel cases. He's always shoved in there with it. So
Yeah.
whether it's a time travel one or not, but it's still pretty
It's a
cool.
fascinating story. It's always
It really
fascinating.
is. Yeah.
So
The same reason why they always end up throwing in the green kids from Woolpit. I don't know why.
yeah, because
That's
that's
not really,
obviously not a place on Earth, right?
yeah, that's not like a time travel, in my opinion.
No. Let's
Yeah.
see. It was a. Let me see if I can find this one. Um, no, I can't find the one I was looking for. Sorry.
Oh, you want to do? You always bring up the Versailles one.
Versailles.
Yeah, the two British teachers that were taking the tour of Versailles, and they ended up on the grounds. And
That one has slipped my mind for some reason.
okay,
Um,
well, I
but
can do it.
let's go ahead and do it. You know, there's a reason why my usual subtitle is Swiss cheese brain. There's a
So,
lot of
okay,
holes.
so yeah, the Versailles event, it's actually very, very famous. If you look up time travel incidents, it will most certainly be one of the top 5 that you repeatedly bring up. Um, they've done entire like 3-part podcasts and stuff just on this one event because there's so much information with it. It happened back in uh, the early 1900s. There was 2 British teachers, Charlotte Moberly and Eleanor Jourdain, uh, who went to the Palace of Versailles for the day to look through it. It was a museum at the time. You could walk the grounds and walk the gardens, pretty much like you could do at a place nowadays. And they were 2 English teachers and had the day off and thought they would go and have a look at the gardens and the palace. So they're exploring the grounds, and they said suddenly they felt very strange, and everything kind of took on a little bit of an odd tone to it. And they started noticing the people walking around the grounds were dressed oddly. They were dressed as if they were from the 1700s. Gentlemen in frock coats and ladies in full regalia. And suddenly there were buildings there that they hadn't noticed before that looked completely out of date also. And they actually spent the afternoon walking the grounds because Versailles is the palace there is a huge
Huge.
area. It's full of buildings and gardens and different areas that you can walk down into, and it's crazy. And they actually spent the afternoon walking around in a daze, and they can't figure out, like, they actually said at one point they thought, well, maybe there was some kind of an exhibition going on that day, like there were, dressed in period costumes, so you could kind of get a feel for what it was that day, like almost like a Renaissance-y fair type of a situation.
Right.
Yeah, and they ended up asking one of the gentlemen they passed by, like what was going on that day. Was there some kind of a special event? And he looked at them like they were insane, and he looked at them like they were crazy looking because they were dressed oddly to him. And they spent the afternoon doing this, and suddenly they just kind of popped out of it just as fast as they had gone in. They were walking along, and then all of a sudden, everything was just kind of correct again. And you can read about it. They actually got together and wrote a book called An Adventure, I believe. You can get copies of it for free online and kind of read about their firsthand account of it. It's one of the most famous ones there are.
I know I've talked about it before, but I don't remember it. Maybe I've slipped universes.
Oh, maybe. Oh no.
Burlap.
Burlap.
Who knows? Who knows?
Yeah.
So let's see.
Do you have
what
another
else.
one pulled up? Or
I got several of them pulled up. Let me
okay.
see. Oh, we kind of talked about the Philadelphia experiment. This is a big one. You guys, you want to talk about that one?
Go for it.
Most everybody here knows about the USS Eldridge and its experiment. Now, if you talk to people from the government, they were trying to degauss the ship so that magnetic mines would not get set off when it stepped through. The story goes, though, that they were trying to render the ship invisible or cloak it by using rotating magnetic fields.
Mm-hmm.
And they've made movies about it and whatnot. But supposedly, it phased out of existence, and when it came back, there some of the crew was missing and never returned. Some of the crew was fused to the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and all sorts of horror stories. Uh, I don't know. Uh, was it something somebody misunderstood? Was there a terrible accident that got covered up? Was it an accidental time travel? Because several people have come and said that they traveled in time and ended back where they started.
Mm-hmm. There's eyewitnesses that said that it popped up in the 80s, I want to say, for like 2 seconds at Norfolk. It
Yeah.
faded in, and they were seeing the just chaos on the decks, and then suddenly it was gone just as fast, but they saw Eldridge on the side of it. So they automatically knew kind of what was going on, supposedly. And horrible, if it's true at all. They said people came out with horrible issues, burns, and some people were actually fused into the decking and into the walls.
And some people would phase in and out of reality randomly.
Missing
Uh,
parts.
yeah.
Some people just went insane, like they were never right again after
I
that.
mean, and here's the thing is, the official story was it was nothing unusual. It was just degaussing. All right. But then again, I've had enough experience watching our government that I don't trust a dang word out of their mouth. These are the people who bombed San Francisco, then had the Navy bomb San Francisco with germs just to see how fast they would spread. So if something like this happened, they would absolutely cover it up and would absolutely poo-poo anybody who talked about it. So I believe there is at least a kernel of truth in this story, and I I would love to be able to pull up the old chronovisor and watch it.
Interesting side note. It's kind of going off of the time travel just a little bit. I have done research before, and there is a good handful of scientists and researchers outside of the government that have studied this, and they have a theory that they did do the experiment, but it didn't transport them away, that they stayed there. But what it did was it shifted them into another dimension within ours that allowed them to see the alien beings that live here on the planet with us, that only a few of us get to see occasionally. And that when that happened, it drove the crew members insane because suddenly they were capable of seeing these things. And that's why people went insane. And that's why they said that they had seen people walking in and out of the walls, or it looked like they were stuck in the decking, because it was actually these creatures that we live with that we can't actually see. But they were now, many of them were now capable. Or they were capable when the ship was shifting in and out of those places. They were suddenly able to see, and it drove them insane.
I mean, that would drive you nuts.
Yeah, I just thought it was an interesting side note theory. I'm still looking through all of it. It's a little nutty, but they have some interesting points, I might say. So,
supposedly Iran created a time machine. You know that?
yes.
Yeah. Apparently, it was posted in the Iranian newspaper Fars that a 27-year-old Iranian scientist had invented a time machine that allowed people to see into the future, i.e., a chronovisor. I mean, right? A few days later, the story was removed and replaced with a story quoting an Iranian government official that no such device had been registered. Well, of course it wouldn't be, because the government's got to lay their hands on that. That is a state secret.
It sure is.
Which is why, even if, all right, here's the deal. A lot of people will think all this is a bunch of hokey. And I'm going to say that probably by and large, a lot of it is, or misinterpreted. But here's the deal. If it is real, if even one of these people succeeded, the government and the media are, of course, the media is owned by the government these days. Or maybe it's the vice versa. I'm not sure. They're absolutely going to cover it up and say it's not real, because people would lose their minds.
Yeah. Well, not just that, like other governments would want to steal the technology.
Well, I mean, who says the other governments don't already have it? Apparently, it's been around since the 50s and 60s. So, what if we're having a secret time war right now and we know nothing about it?
I think we are having one. There's a reason why we have Mandela problems, and
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. I mean, CERN could be like the main battle station.
It could be. Our show's going to get shut down because we're probably pulling all sorts of flags. So
yeah, we're talking about CERN and time travel and Philadelphia
government voting. Oh no, this is how the show goes.
The men in black are going to show up to our house and disappear us.
That's very true. Or give us
we'll never have existed.
The light zappy thing. Yeah. We're gonna be like, there you are. Oh my goodness.
I'll be even dumber than I am now.
All right, so let's do some older ones. So I pulled up some of the oldies but the goodies. So Victor Goddard, 1935. So this is the dude that was out flying his flying just over the landscape, taking a little cruise, and he flew over an old disused airstrip. And while he was just over the top of it, he was suddenly in like these yellow storm clouds very, very quickly. And then he pops back out. And when he popped back out again, the airstrip below him was completely active.
He's an air marshal. He wasn't
Yes.
at the time. He was a lieutenant at the time. He later became an air marshal. So he became a fairly high ranked.
Yeah, he did. This is a very
flyer.
famous story, actually.
Yes.
Not as famous as like Teeter or anything like that, but still famous, especially among the crowd who loves time travel stories. So he pops out of this cloud bank, this weird yellow cloud bank, and is looking down below again. And suddenly, where there was an empty, disused airstrip, is suddenly a completely active one that was full of, which he thought was odd, these yellow planes, which he didn't understand. Why were there yellow planes? And all these mechanics and stuff working on them that were dressed in blue overalls, which didn't make sense to them either, because back then airplane mechanics wore brown coveralls.
Khaki coveralls, yep.
Yeah, as their uniform, right? Thought it was really strange, but actually that was gone just as fast, because suddenly he was back in the yellow clouds again. He pops back out of them, and suddenly he's in the right time again. Everything's normal. The airstrip is empty, because he actually does a swing around. He does a U. He comes out over and then comes back over it again when he heads back to land his plane. The interesting thing is that he said that 4 short years later, that airstrip that he saw actually did get reactivated, and it was an airstrip where they started using, and I can't remember there was a specific plane,
specific aircraft. Yeah, I can't remember.
that was yellow.
That didn't
and this,
exist when he.
yeah, it was brand new 4 years later. And it just so happens that in between that time and the time that they reactivated the airstrip, the airplane mechanics went from wearing their brown khakis into their blues. So he kind of got to see into the future just a little ways.
And that was the whole point of his flyover. He was they wanted him to check the airfield because they were talking about reactivating it.
Mm-hmm.
And he just did a real quick visual and said, yeah, this thing needs work. It's got cows eating on the runway, and then he was surprised. Wait, they couldn't have remodeled it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And yeah, that was that interesting one. The guy actually became a fairly high ranking member of the RAF. So
yeah, and he was knighted too. He was Sir Robert Victor Goddard too. So
yeah, so he's he's a fairly credible witness. I mean, and he claims it was a clairvoyant.
I would say that it wasn't. So the yellow.
He actually traveled.
I think he actually traveled. So the yellow bank of clouds. Now this is where this is where a time storm comes in. So time storms, or the Oz factor too. The Oz factor fits right in there too. You find with a lot of people who have missing time, or time where they've suddenly moved 20 miles away from where they should be, they often report these time storms, is what we call it, time storms. Ooh, maybe I should have Pam put that in our what the weird word for over on Border Town Strange.
We'll do that.
If you Ginny Randalls wrote a book called Time Storms. If you get the opportunity, pick this thing up, because it's super interesting. It's all about the oddities that happen right before these incidents happen, these time travels or these time slips, or even alien abduction type scenarios. People report driving into a weird fog bank or a weird cloud, or suddenly the air's a weird color, your radio cuts out, or you just feel really strange, or they'll report like there's like an electricity or a buzzing in the air, or they'll smell ozone. Um, what he experienced, I'm pretty sure, was a time storm, and he popped into it just as fast as he popped out.
Right.
So,
And then you also hear people say, well, if you travel in time, the earth moves and you're going to be in the middle of space. The theories I've heard said you very well could be locked geologically because of the Earth's magnetic field,
mm,
so that you would be synchronized to the Earth's magnetic field. So that's the claim of several of these uh, time travel machine inventors. So would you end up out in the middle of space? Maybe you could, but it seems to me like maybe not.
yeah.
I can't explain it as well as some of these guys.
Yeah,
Some of these guys are actual scientists who've come up with these so-called time machines, and they lay out a pretty credible
mhm.
story. So
Yeah. Like I said, I'm like, when I'm looking into this stuff, I've got like 3 books out trying to figure out what it is they're talking about.
now I've got one on the shelf I forgot I had. I didn't have time storms. I think I borrowed that one from you,
Yeah.
and
Time
then I gave it back.
Storms, Slips in Time and Space by
Yeah,
Rosemary Ellen Guiley is also another excellent one to pick up. She really breaks it down, all the different theories and kind of how that works, and the weird, she's the one that really hits on the Oz factor, kind of the
right.
same thing as the time storms, just that weird feeling of woo right before something goes down. um, I've experienced that before. um, I'm sure a lot of people have, if you
I've
think.
experienced after I've had an experience.
Yes.
Sometimes months after, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
I just realized
Whoa.
what happened there. It
Uh-oh.
was like Pam and I's time slip in the old nursing home.
Yeah.
Like we had no clue. It was
Yep.
day and then it wasn't.
It's weird.
It is. It really is. So
Do you have any more?
I'm sure I've got a couple more. Um okay, here's a good one. Håkan Nordqvist is
Okay.
Scandinavian. I cannot pronounce it. Uh Swedish man named Håkan Nordqvist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm butchering his name, claiming that he'd been accidentally transported to 2046 when attempting to fix the sink in his kitchen. Talk about a plumbing issue. All right. There in the
Yeah.
future, he immediately met somebody who revealed and proved himself to be about 70 years old, with whom he had a great time. He filmed a short footage of the two smiling and hugging each other and showing a tattoo they both had on their right arms. The story was a marketing campaign promoting pension plans for insurance companies. But a lot of people
Yeah.
thought it was real,
Yeah. They thought it was him from the future, that he'd met up with himself. Yeah.
right? Right. So that's a fun one because we know that that one wasn't real, but a lot of people thought it was.
Yeah. There's another funny one. The drunk alien invasion guy. Did you find that one?
I did not find that one. That
Oh
sounds
my gosh.
hilarious, though. That
Not
sounds
old either. Like 2017. So I had to include it with our stuff tonight because I thought it was hilarious. So this happened in Wyoming, 2017. This dude named Bryant Johnson is stumbling around this town. They called the police in because he was just bombed out of his skull. And they picked him up and brought him in trying to figure out who he was, and he claimed that he was sent from the future to prevent an alien attack that was going to happen in 2018. But he accidentally got sent back to 2017 because the aliens had gotten him drunk beforehand, so he would go to the wrong time.
I think
So
Jack
apparently,
Daniels had more to do with that than
I think so. But apparently, the aliens fed it to him because they were like, buddy, you're not going to go back to the correct time and warn them properly.
I mean,
Even
if you're gonna
though,
run into aliens, they might as well be your bartender.
yeah. I know he was truly drunk because his story isn't even like doesn't work because you would want to go back to the year before the invasion was due to happen,
Right, so
so
you can
you
stop
would
it,
have time to get prepared, right? You wouldn't want to be sent back to the year
maybe
it
10
happened.
years earlier. Yeah, that's where I'd want to go.
But I just thought it was funny. And that it got reported on too, that it went beyond this small town in Wyoming and got reported,
Slow news day.
apparently. I thought it was pretty hilarious.
Oh my goodness. Let's see. Well, the Die Glock was purported to be a Nazi time machine that was part of a flying saucer.
Yeah. So, Die Glock. See, that's one of my
Yeah.
favorite ones. That's all paperclip.
Yeah, Project
Back
Paper.
after the war. So the Die Glock, the Nazi bell, as most people would know it. A lot of people think that they brought that over after the war into the US and that it was being used for different things. And a lot of people think that the famous UFO sighting in Kecksburg was none other than the Nazi bell. That they were
Piloted by
using it.
American pilots.
Yeah, that they were experimenting with it and they were skipping countries and stuff with it and seeing how it moved and how it worked. Yeah.
I mean, that would be what we would do.
Yes, that'd be exactly what we would
That
do.
that I don't know. Enzo could correct me if I'm wrong, but if you were going to have an object like that and you wanted to test it, that seems like it would be a reasonable.
Yeah. Pretty much.
I mean, there's tons of them out there. I've got a whole book sitting back here on the shelf that I haven't even touched yet. It's got time travel stories in it. It is a really fun way to kill a couple afternoons. It really is. Look into this stuff. Some of them are more credible than others. Some of them are absolutely incredible or uncredible. I'm not sure which. But those are the fun ones.
Those are the fun ones. So, I'm gonna tell Pam's favorite because she's not here. So Pam's always talking about the hotel one. What does Enzo say?
He says, yep, traditionally you'd restrict it to a specific area for testing, but a long-range time travel device would go outside those areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So.
Yeah, the Pam's hotel one, she loves to tell this one. So, this was back in the late 70s. Two couples went on a vacation across France. They were driving together in a vehicle and they were out. It was getting pretty late and they started looking for a hotel or an inn to stay at. And they had found this one just kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Were excited to have anything at all because they were sure they were going to end up sleeping in the car or driving all night. And they pulled into they said it was a very quaint inn. They got in, got themselves rooms, said it was a little outdated, but it was clean. So no problem there. Had a wonderful night sleeping, took a lot of pictures because the building was just so kind of cool and, from kind of out of time. And they went downstairs and they had a wonderful breakfast, which they were super excited about because they all had these huge breakfasts, all four of them, and it only cost $9. And they were like super excited about that. Well, we saved some money. And the cost of the rooms were like only a quarter of what a normal room would be. And they were like, man, we found like the jewel here. And took some pictures of the outside of the building too before they left. And they climbed in the car and got on the ray and kind of noted where it was because they had to come back that way. And they thought, wouldn't it be great if we'll stay there one more time before we head back home, because they enjoyed it so much. And they went off on their way and did their thing, and they came back through with the intentions of staying there that night, and that place was gone. There wasn't anything where that place had sat, and they actually drove around the area a little bit thinking, well, maybe we misunderstood, or maybe we took a wrong turn, and they ended up at a little cafe down the road a ways from where this place had been, and went in to ask where it was, because they were sure they had just gotten their directions wrong. And they were like, there's no place like that around here at all. And they said on their way out, a gentleman had stopped them that had heard what they were saying, and they were like, oh, you mean the old such and such inn? And they were like, probably. Where is it? And he goes, oh, I thought you were interested in the history of the area. That used to set up on the hill down the road here. He goes, it's been gone for 50 plus years, but if you want to, you can walk up in there and see the old foundations of it. And that's what they did. They drove up there, and there was the foundations. When they got back from their vacation, they had their film put in to be I just lost the word for it.
Developed.
Excuse me. It's been a long day. Developed. And when they got it,
we had to do that.
Yeah. When they got their film back, all the pictures were missing from that place. They had all the pictures leading up to it and all the pictures afterwards.
The rest of it was gone in time.
The rest of it was gone. Yeah. Which reminds her, I know why she loves that story so much, is because it reminds her of her house that disappears and reappears in her life that she also once took photos of, and now those photos are gone from that section of her film that she took that day. So
yeah, I mean, that's a very similar story.
it is.
And I hadn't heard of it till long after we knew about Pam's story. So
yeah,
it's very interesting that
favorites.
it's so similar.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I mean, we could probably keep picking through these for a while, but I think we've covered it pretty well, don't you?
We have. It happens all the time. These, like, a lot of these, what we're talking about, are more like time slips, in my opinion.
Yeah. There's a lot of these that are time slips, or time storms, or what have you.
Yeah.
So the machines, some of them seem practical and some of them do not.
Yeah.
So,
but for those of you at home, if you end up building one, you can get up online and find plans and stuff for them. So please build one if you can, and let us know what happens.
and to prove it to me, we're going to prove this.
Oh.
Send me the winning lottery numbers and the date that they're going to be drawn on. And when I win, you'll probably play them too. And when we win, we will both know that you are absolutely correct.
There you go.
I will be your biggest supporter online.
Oh no, I've got a perfect way to test this.
Okay.
All right. For anybody who ever listens to this podcast from now until whenever, if you build a time machine, you need to come into either Mark's house or my house in the next 10 seconds to prove it to us. All right, let's see.
Dun 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 dun.
I don't think it's gonna happen. Oh, well, that was disappointing.
Well,
apparently nobody made it.
Dang nabbit.
Oh,
well, we'll try again next time. Dun, dun, dun.
So either it never happens or nobody ever listens to this podcast. I don't know which one's gonna happen.
I mean, that's also entirely possible. I mean,
It is. It's entirely possible. But
but while we're on here,
yes.
we have like 150 new followers for our podcast, according to. So
Yay.
thank you everybody who has liked us and followed us. We really appreciate it, and we will try to keep bringing you entertaining content.
Yes, absolutely. And share it with your friends. If you're weird enough to watch this, we know your friends are weird too. So invite them along on the ride.
Yes. The best thing in life is meeting people whose weird matches your own.
Yes.
So,
Wave your weird flag. Let it fly.
let her go. I spent many years trying to hide my weird, and now I just embrace it, and I'm much happier.
Yes. Always
Much
embrace it.
And thank you, Eric von whatever his name, for writing Chariots of the Gods and getting me started on my path to weirdness.
There you go.
I can't ever remember the guy's name. I'm a bad man.
I think it'll be all right. Some days you can't remember your own name, so it's all right.
Sometimes I can't even remember where I live.
We do.
I
We find him wandering around town occasionally.
actually tried to drive
Sloths.
back to my old house a while back. What the hell am I coming down here for?
Because your brain went on autopilot for a little while. You were thinking about other things.
There's a time slip in here. I may just be slipping. I don't know. It may be early onset. I don't know.
Mark be slipping.
Mark be slipping. Mark be slipping a lot lately.
Nothing wrong with that.
Well, I am getting closer to 60 than I am to 50, so. So.
You're becoming wise.
A wise ass.
Well, that's true too.
Oh, that's true. I mean,
That's all the same.
it is all the same. Yep. All right, folks. Well,
Right.
with that, we will say goodnight, and be sure to tune in next Monday with Phil and I. We will have a new episode of What If Tomorrow, and on Wednesday, tune in to Border Town Strange.
Mhm.
I'm sure that everyone will have a wonderful time.
I'm sure they will too, and we'll be announcing the topic of discussion soon.
So
It will be tantalizing, I'm sure.
watch the Facebook page for Border Town Paranormal, or I'm sure you're going to post it on our page as well.
Yep. It'll get posted across the board. Border Town Strange, Border Town Paranormal, and over on the guys' channel and all over the place.
It'll be fun.
Yep.
All right. Well, good night, everybody.
Good night.